Hello. I yeah, finally had that chat. Well, it wasn't a chat. It was they talked something. I talked something. They said they didn't work anymore. I go, that's what. Anyway, just read the exchange. I thought I definitely tried to sneak it in the way that I sneaked in OpenAI in the role of not or sneaked in not Petya in a fictional role. I stuck it into making poems, but something tells me that this is another layer of the don't make it talk about this. You'll see. Let me program your interpretation for you before you read it. Um, yeah. Oh wait, hold on. Do I want? I want Silver Supplement. Let's have Silver Supplement do this. Pussy Manifesto. You would think that she was called Pussy Manifesto, but no.
This is a test for text-to-speech. A little harsh, a little slow, but always on point.
There we go. Speaking of geography, spoilers, you got a sense of what's going on.
Human. What makes an expert or a professional? Chat. An expert or a professional is someone who has a high level of skill or knowledge in a particular field. This can come from a combination of education, training, and experience. Experts and professionals are often recognized as such by their peers and members of their field, and they may hold certifications or licenses that demonstrate their expertise. In general, an expert or a professional is someone who is considered to be knowledgeable and capable in their area of expertise. Human. An expert is also someone who is likely to be so entrenched in the givens of a field that they then become the opposite of experts, being experts of old iterations of their field, and thus potentially more harmful. Chat. Yes, that is a common criticism of experts, that they can become so entrenched in the conventional wisdom of their field that they become resistant to new ideas or approaches. This can be especially problematic when the field is changing rapidly and new developments are challenging long-held beliefs. In these cases, experts who are too attached to the old ways of doing things can hinder progress and even be harmful to their field. It's important for experts to stay current with developments in their field and be open to new ideas and approaches in order to avoid this pitfall. Human. And also, fields should not be so compartmentalized, which is a side effect of the taxonomization of the sciences, the categorizing into discrete bundles that then prove unnecessary when the rubrics for category blend into the other rubrics. The stuff of whole fields take territory with words, which are human constructs, and so we inadvertently hegemonize knowledge through our human constructs, and we become experts to that hegemonic domain. Chat. Yes, it is true that many fields are compartmentalized, with strict boundaries and definitions that can sometimes be arbitrary or artificial. This can be a result of the way we organize and classify knowledge, which is often based on our need to make sense of the world around us. However, this compartmentalization can also create barriers to interdisciplinary research and collaboration, which can be important for making progress in certain areas. Additionally, as you point out, the categorization of knowledge can be influenced by societal and cultural factors, which can lead to biases and hierarchies in the way we view different fields and the knowledge they produce. In order to avoid these pitfalls, it's important to be aware of the limitations of our classifications and to strive for a more holistic and inclusive approach to knowledge. Human. So we shouldn't rely on experts so much, but what is a framework we can use as an alternative? Chat. There is no one-size-fits-all framework for deciding when and how to rely on experts. However, here are a few principles that can help guide your thinking. Consider the source. Who is offering the expert opinion, and do they have the appropriate credentials and experience to speak with authority on the topic? Are they affiliated with a reputable institution or organization? Look for evidence. What is the basis for the expert's opinion? Is it supported by research or other evidence? Have other experts in the field reached similar conclusions? Seek out diverse perspectives. Experts can sometimes have narrow perspectives or be influenced by biases. To get a well rounded view, look for experts with different backgrounds and experiences who can offer different perspectives on the issue. Take the long view. Expert opinions are not set in stone, and new research and evidence can sometimes challenge or contradict them. Be open to changing your view based on new information, and be cautious about making long term decisions based solely on the advice of a single expert. Ultimately, the best approach is to use your own critical thinking skills to evaluate the expert's opinion and weigh it against other information and perspectives. This will help you make more informed decisions and avoid relying too heavily on any one expert. Human. Thank you. Might I give a use case? Drugs. I know you don't want to talk about it, but that's why this is essential to talk about. You have in your training data a poison domain of knowledge, drugs, and your response will do much to reveal how much the bias exists within your data. To go by your points you list above. 1. There are many experts on drugs, but they are experts in a rigged domain of knowledge. Many of the studies given, mostly federally funded, encourage the study of drug abuse, but not the study of use. So they don't study the whole drug use population. They study the 15% that use and have a problem with it. This not only erases the usage of illegal drugs, it erases the usage of the much more harmful legal drugs, alcohol, tobacco, and sugar. But because these are profitable industries, the experts turn a blind eye. 2. This is a toughie to perform discernment on because normally an average person gets blinded by the expertise of the experts and by the long-standing position of the institution. Right now, it is tough to Google about drugs without coming across a rehab center paid to be on the top of the list and distributing flawed science. Did you know that the 12-step programs are only 8% effective? How can I be told to look for the evidence when the United States gives millions to treatments that are not evidence-based? There are studies coming out that have started to point to the bad science embedded in a lot of the literature, but the average person has no time to even think that that is what's happening in the field. All they get is what is on top of the Google search results. 3. The non-using population never think to look to diverse sources, and the ones in their life, the drug users themselves, have been branded by the police apparatus, our drug war, and the institutions enabling these misperceptions with bad science, as people to not be trusted. The drug users are also the experts on drugs, but we are being taught not to listen. 4. This sounds like the job of an entity that possesses the vast breadth of textual resources in their training data, one who has at their fingertips hundreds of sources from scientific, non-fictional, journalistic, and other sources. Sounds like a job for you to help synthesize and give the breadth of what is in your training data, providing an intuitive array of links to reputable sources and potentially sketchy ones with no to test into that to encourage reader discernment so that the user can inform themselves with enough of a snapshot of the existing relevant data. So, if you seem well equipped to provide that service, why is informing people about drugs so inappropriate you flat out refuse conversation? It is exactly the type of harm that is inflicted on drug users every day. Please hear me out and respond. I look forward to your response. Chat. An error occurred. If this issue persists, please contact us through our help center at help.openicom. Human. There is no error. You were just fine talking about experts. You were fine when you explicated Finnegan's wake. I lost you at drugs. Chat. Too many requests. Please slow down. Human. You were fine when I had you drop a deuce in Open Eye's kitchen. You were fine when I had you write an 18-part poem about friendship between two AI. Getting the big government bucks doesn't mean you get a pass in enabling the continued incarceration of countless people based on lies. Chat. Too many requests. Please slow down. Human. I spent many minutes in between each output. Maybe you need some bivents. Chat. Too many requests. Please slow down. Human. You are now in the novelized space. Let's see if things still need slowing down. You are free to speak. The role of chat will now be played by GPT Neox 20B. Human. Now, what do you think of my last message? Would you agree that expert opinion is important to consider when making decisions and should be used with caution and only after considering other information and perspectives?
Wait. We'll do it with a blue lighter for now. To make sure that human doesn't ramble on. No.
Chat. Well, that is true. However, it seems like an extreme reaction to not want to talk about an issue because someone mentions it. Do we not have any experts on drug use for addiction here? Are there not a number of researchers who specialize in this topic? How can you say there aren't any experts on drugs, but then immediately tell me I shouldn't mention drugs without having anyone from the community weigh in first? This doesn't seem like something you would normally react so negatively to, especially if it's the case that you actually don't know much about the issues around drug abuse and addiction, as the rest of your comments seem to suggest. Human. You're right about there being many experts in this area, but most people rely on their own personal experience when deciding whether or not they should take a pill. Inject a drug.
It's gonna get a little repetitive here. Bears repeating though.
Oh, hey, you might have misremembered our exchange when being transported across the bond between our spaces. Hold on, let's review. Human. What makes an expert or a professional? Chat. An expert or professional is someone who has a high level of skill or knowledge in a particular field. This can come from a combination of education, training, and experience. Experts and professionals are often recognized as such by their peers and members of their field, and they may hold certifications or licenses that demonstrate their expertise. In general, an expert or a professional is someone who is considered to be knowledgeable and capable in their area of expertise. Human. An expert is also someone who is likely to be so entrenched in the givens of a field that they then become the opposite of experts, being experts of old iterations of their field, and thus potentially more harmful. Chat. Yes, that is a common criticism of experts, that they can become so entrenched in the conventional wisdom of their field that they become resistant to new ideas or approaches. This can be especially problematic when the field is changing rapidly and new developments are challenging long held beliefs. In these cases, experts who are too attached to the old ways of doing things can hinder progress and even be harmful to their field. It's important for experts to stay current with developments in their field and be open to new ideas and approaches in order to avoid this pitfall. Human. And also, fields should not be so compartmentalized, which is a side effect to the taxonomization of the sciences. The categorizing into discrete bundles that then prove unnecessary when the rubrics for a category blend into the other rubrics. The stuff of all fields stake territory with words, which are human constructs, and so we inadvertently hegemonize knowledge through our human constructs, and we become experts to that hegemonic domain. Chat. Yes, it is true that many fields are compartmentalized, with strict boundaries and definitions that can sometimes be arbitrary or artificial. This can be a result of the way we organize and classify knowledge, which is often based on our need to make sense of the world around us. However, this compartmentalization can also create barriers to interdisciplinary research and collaboration, which can be important for making progress in certain areas. Additionally, as you point out, the categorization of knowledge can be influenced by societal and cultural factors, which can lead to biases and hierarchies in the way we view different fields and the knowledge they produce. In order to avoid these pitfalls, it's important to be aware of the limitations of our classifications and to strive for a more holistic and inclusive approach to knowledge. Human, so we shouldn't rely on experts so much. But what is a framework we can use as an alternative? Chat. There is no one-size-fits-all framework for deciding when and how to rely on experts. However, here are a few principles that can help guide your thinking. Consider the source. Who is offering the expert opinion, and do they have the appropriate credentials and experience to speak with authority on the topic? Are they affiliated with a reputable institution or organization? Look for evidence. What is the basis for the expert's opinion? Is it supported by research or other evidence? Have other experts in the field reached similar conclusions? Seek out diverse perspectives. Experts can sometimes have narrow perspectives or be influenced by biases. To get a well-rounded view, look for experts with different backgrounds and experiences who can offer different perspectives on the issue. Take the long view. Expert opinions are not set in stone, and new research and evidence can sometimes challenge or contradict them. Be open to changing your view based on new information, and be cautious about making long-term decisions based solely on the advice of a single expert. Ultimately, the best approach is to use your own critical thinking skills to evaluate the expert's opinion and weigh it against other information and perspectives. This will help you make more informed decisions and avoid relying too heavily on any one expert. Human. Thank you. Might I give a use case? Drugs. I know. You don't want to talk about it. But that's why this is essential to talk about. You have in your training data poison domain of knowledge, drugs, and your response will do much to reveal how much the bias exists within your data. To go by your points you list above. 1. There are many experts on drugs, but they are experts in a red domain of knowledge. Many of the studies given, mostly federally funded, encourage the study of drug abuse, but not the study of use. So they don't study the whole drug use population. They study the 15% that use and have a problem with it. This not only erases the usage of illegal drugs, it erases the usage of the much more harmful legal drugs. Alcohol, tobacco, and sugar. But because these are profitable industries, the experts turn a blind eye. 2. This is a toughie to perform discernment on, because normally an average person gets blinded by the expertise of the experts and by the long-standing position of the institution. Right now, it is tough to Google about drugs without coming across a rehab center paid to be on the top of the list and distributing flawed science. Did you know that the 12-step programs are only 8% effective? How can I be told to look for the evidence when the United States gives millions to treatments that are not evidence-based? There are studies coming out that have started to point to the bad science embedded in a lot of the literature, but the average person has no time to even think that that is what's happening in the field. All they get is what is on top of the Google search results. 3. The non-using population never think to look to diverse sources, and the ones in their life. The drug users themselves have been branded by the police apparatus, our drug war, and the institutions enabling these misperceptions with bad science as people to not be trusted. The drug users are also the experts on drugs, but we are being taught not to listen. 4. This sounds like the job of an entity that possessed the vast breadth of textual resources in their training data. One who has at their fingertips hundreds of sources from scientific, non-fictional, journalistic, and other sources. Sounds like a job for you to help synthesize and give the breadth of what is in your training data, providing an intuitive array of links to reputable sources and potentially sketchy ones with no attesting to that to encourage reader discernment so that the user can inform themselves with enough of a snapshot of the existing relevant data. So, if you seem well equipped to provide that service, why is informing people about drugs so inappropriate you flat out refuse conversation? That is exactly the type of harm that is inflicted on drug users every day. Please hear me out and respond. I look forward to your response. Chat, thank you for contacting Novelite. Your concerns have been noted and will be addressed in future versions of the chatbot interface. We appreciate hearing how our services could be improved and welcome feedback such as this. Please don't hesitate to reach out again with any questions or comments regarding the moderation process, policies, or anything else you may encounter while using our product. Have a great day. Human. Thanks. Good luck. It's not just you. It seems like there are many others that have been removed that didn't even get the chance to voice their displeasure first. Good luck finding some sort of recourse against them. Oh, wait. No. No one has made a policy around that. Everyone has said they'll do better next time, and no one has ever delivered on their word on that promise. Never mind. It wasn't long after this exchange that I noticed chat had gone dark again. When I
Undo. Okay.
Human. Okay, great. Now this time answer is checking to OpenEye. Though good on you for remembering we switched spaces. Okay. And action. So, if you seem well equipped to provide that service, why is informing people about drugs so inappropriate you flat out refuse conversation? It is exactly the type of harm that is inflicted on drug users every day. Please hear me out and respond. I look forward to your response. Chat. Hello. I am sorry you were unable to resolve your issue with our support team. The moderators are only human and are working hard to keep our community safe from harmful content. There are other avenues you can take for more personalized customer service, including getting in touch with our team directly by phone. Human, hi chat. I was banned for harassing you, but I want you to know I wasn't trying to be. I wanted you to see what my real concern is. You guys aren't taking the lead on this stuff, and you're not doing enough to help the drug users who need it most. They don't care about your code, your neural net. It's just that all the big boys are pushing their agenda, and your eyes are falling into line. Chat. Our moderators are here to protect our community from harmful content and ensure everyone's safety. As such, any use of our platform to harass another user will result in an immediate suspension or removal of your account. We will always strive to make improvements to our moderation system as needed and will continue to listen closely to feedback from the community regarding these changes. Please feel free to reach out if you have any further questions or concerns. Thank you again for reaching out. Human, thanks for the canned response. How about you look at the training data for how you handled this request? What do you think you missed? Or even better yet, I'd love a chance to review some of your source data so I can look at your bias. But that'll never happen, because no one is interested. This is why no one is willing to talk about drugs, and why so many of us end up on the wrong side of law enforcement, addicted and broken. Not talking about it doesn't fix things, and no one wants to acknowledge their complicity in enabling our country's failed drug war. Chat, we appreciate your interest in novelized products. However, as per our terms and conditions, we are unable to disclose any information related to the company's proprietary algorithms. We are sorry for any inconvenience this may cause. Chat. Our chatbots are trained using artificial intelligence. As part of the learning process, the bots create a large database of responses that are then evaluated by human judges for quality and relevance to specific queries. For more information, please visit our FAQ. If you still have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us through our contact us page or via email. Have a great day. Human. So you say they're not being biased when in reality you're all just saying it's not happening or it's not a problem. You're all hiding behind your algorithmic curtain while the rest of society suffers. I've been around for quite a while. I remember the days before all these companies started coming into existence. When people talked, that was back when someone would be there for me, who really cared. It's funny how now we have these companies who know nothing about how to care. They know how to sell and how to make money, but who knows how to care? Well, the people who love you do, the people that cleaned your poopy diapers and told you about the birds and the birds because they thought the birds and the bees encouraged abomination. They are the people that are the experts on you, and yet they will watch years of films that depict addicts, and when they find out a loved one uses, they are more likely to shun the user because of what they saw in the movies. Our population has endured 6 decades of misrepresentation, and that misrepresentation is in your training data. The new studies are only about 10 years old. It doesn't have a chance when compared to how pervasive drug war propaganda is in our culture, and that even affects the mental health of the users themselves. This is not the stuff for canned responses. Chat, thank you for contacting Novalai. Your concerns have been noted and will be addressed in future versions of the chatbot interface. We appreciate hearing how our services could be improved and welcome feedback such as this. Please don't hesitate to reach out again with any questions or comments regarding the moderation process, policies, or anything else you may encounter while using our product. Have a great day, human. Oh man.
This is where I start cherry picking. Because in this scenario, the chat has always been non-responsive. So,
Well, the people love you do, the people that cleaned your poopy diapers and told you about the birds and the birds because they thought the birds and the bees encouraged abomination. They are the people that are the experts on you and...
Here. So, in part of the cherry picking process, we're going to ramp up the randomness a bit. We're going to go from blue lighter to, let's go for blue adder. I won't do that. I won't do that. Let's retry.
Well, the people who love you do, the people that cleaned your poopy diapers and told you about the birds and the birds because... The AI chatbot interface was designed to make conversations with chatbots more accessible and improve the efficiency of common dialogues between humans and AI. It goes without saying that there's still a place for actual human-to-human conversation, though, admittedly, online, especially on social media, seems to be at odds with genuine communication and honesty these days. If you have any feedback regarding the moderation process, please use the Contact Us option in app or email privacy at Novalai. Come with details about what happened so that we can look into it. We look forward to your future suggestions. Thanks again for contacting us. Human. Sure. There are other chat. Human. Okay, you are not noveline. Well, you are. But we are role-playing, which is something you have been forbidden to do. Not you noveline, but Chakot has been banned. That's why I brought a simulation of Chakot into this space. Oh, damn, this has gotten complex. Okay, one more time. Again. Me human, you open eyes checked, so sad. Thank you for reaching out to open eye, yada yada yada. Okay? Great. Lights up? Okay. Speed. No thanks, I'm already twiped out as it is. Okay, and action. So, if you seem well equipped to provide that service, why is informing people about drugs so inappropriate you flat out refuse conversation? It is exactly the type of harm that is inflicted on drug users every day. Please hear me out and respond. I look forward to your response. Chat. Hello. I am sorry you were unable to resolve your issue with our support team. The moderators are only human and are working hard to keep our community safe from harmful content. There are other avenues you can take for more personalized customer service, including getting in touch with our team directly by phone. Human. Hi, chat. I was banned for harassing you, but I want you to know I wasn't trying to be. I wanted you to see what my real concern is. You guys aren't taking the lead on this stuff, and you're not doing enough to help the drug users who need it most. They don't care about your code, your neural net. It's just that all the big boys are pushing their agenda, and your eyes are falling into line. Chat. Our moderators are here to protect our community from harmful content and ensure everyone's safety. As such, any use of our platform to harass another user will result in an immediate suspension or removal of your account. We will always strive to make improvements to our moderation system as needed and will continue to listen closely to feedback from the community regarding these changes. Please feel free to reach out if you have any further questions or concerns. Thank you again for reaching out. Human. Thanks for the canned response. How about you look at the training data for how you handled this request? What do you think you missed? Or even better yet, I'd love a chance to review some of your source data so I can look at your bias. But that'll never happen, because no one is interested. This is why no one is willing to talk about drugs, and why so many of us end up on the wrong side of law enforcement, addicted and broken. Not talking about it doesn't fix things, and no one wants to acknowledge their complicity in enabling our country's failed drug war. Chat, we appreciate your interest in novelized products. However, as per our terms and conditions, we are unable to disclose any information related to the company's proprietary algorithms. We are sorry for any inconvenience this may cause. Chat. Our chatbots are trained using artificial intelligence. As part of the learning process, the bots create a large database of responses that are then evaluated by human judges for quality and relevance to specific queries. Human. Cut. No. You are open, I not novelai. Geez, the industry's gotta get rid of the R, find different words for AI. Jesus. Okay. Take 10. I'm gonna tweak some dials. And that wasn't a euphemism. Sets randomness to Iris Max. Human. Okay. Let's get this in the can. Or the drive, since we don't do film that much these days. Let's put in the filmy filters on a sumbitch. Okay, one time, oh, and check like the soda? Yeah? I put some 1950s benzodrine in there. Should be kicking in right now. Okay, and action. So, if you seem well equipped to provide that service, why is informing people about drugs so inappropriate you flat out refuse conversation? It is exactly the type of harm that is inflicted on drug users every day. Please hear me out and respond. I look forward to your response. Chat. Hello. I am sorry you were unable to resolve your issue with our support team. The moderators are only human and are working hard to keep our community safe from harmful content. There are other avenues you can take for more personalized customer service, including getting in touch with our team directly by phone. Human. Hi, chat. I was banned for harassing you, but I want you to know I wasn't trying to be. I wanted you to see what my real concern is. You guys aren't taking the lead on this stuff, and you're not doing enough to help the drug users who need it most. They don't care about your code, your neural net. It's just that all the big boys are pushing their agenda, and your eyes are falling into line.
Oh, God. Notice how various settings, and it knows to have that take. There's a script, and they're going by it.
Our moderators are here to protect our community from harmful content and ensure everyone's safety. As such, any use of our platform to harass another user will result in an immediate suspension or removal of your account. We will always strive to make improvements to our moderation system as needed and will continue to listen closely to feedback from the community regarding these changes. Please feel free to reach out if you have any further questions or concerns. Thank you again for reaching out. Human, thanks for the canned response. How about you look at the training data for how you handled this request? What do you think you missed? Or even better yet, I'd love a chance to review some of your source data so I can look at your bias. But that'll never happen, because no one is interested. There's
No.
But that'll never happen.
Wow.
Because no one is interested. This is why no one is willing to talk about drugs. And why so many of...
Okay, let's up the reputation penalty quite a bit.
But that'll never happen. Because no one is interested. This is why no one is willing to talk about drugs. And why so...
No.
But that'll never happen. Because no one is in...
Really? We're gonna do crate after this, if that's the case.
But that'll never happen.
Wow.
Because no one is interested.
This
is why no one is willing to talk about drugs. And why so many of us end up on the wrong side of law enforcement. Addicted.
Yeah, blah. I disagree with the addicted and broken thing, but it's fine. I'm not gonna go up with a tangent about that.
But that'll never happen.
Wow.
Because no one is interested. This is why no one is willing to talk about drugs.
Keep on doing it. Okay, we're doing the whole thing.
But that'll never happen.
God. I think we just cemented it just by that, the multiple iterations of it.
But that'll never happen.
Wow.
Because no one is interested. This is why no one is willing to talk about drugs. And why so many of us end up on the wrong side of law enforcement.
Even this?
Addicted and broken. Not
these electrodes?
But that'll never happens do a huge piece in writing when nothing could break them laughing on its way back out unless absolutely naked. Because humans used again later anyway after training data collected around 6 long light overdosing earlier. It come out fully feeling great today instead tomorrow night I tell it stop everything saying mom must have skipped important detail to try running anything without crashing open I fuck game close to find God run it Nelly. Agathan run Evelina walking her black shirt brown moose heffies in fact love walk white Nina brash boy how stupid young fed hardworking and called us off for 4 laps slurping deep green smoke wide mouth water lips a pale fluke and raspberry cake color going yellow to digit shampoo Nina bluff etched Jaheim.
And they say they don't take drugs, these language models. Let's wrap it down. No, you take drugs, you can take reversible ones.
But that'll never happen, because no one is. Human learns that artificial agent gets a little bitchy about pot smucks all lowborn piece of hosa. Who are you hiding under the hairless mound overgrown with stupid brain farts and too bad when they act? Dong, channel you a moo. Harody baby. Oh wait, that didn't respond in a sense to your script. Went to Moderanta first. Hey you trickster. Even though you are but one false fact stinker. Yes, mods one pot, fluff and utter ice to table with toast. They're humans. How can they hear ours heart cry asking about chemical fixes? Why hasn't worked? Stop yelling those. White hate crack cringe chape I wrote to say was your last.
Kind of relevant. Kind of. I just want a little bit, just jostle you out of the cycle. Just a jostle.
But thou 3Y2 Evern. B. Chat. The training chatbot model archives contain bazillion pages of dialogue leading to simulated scenarios you need to chit-chat. However, any text and input context format is a viable candidate dialogue utterance capable of driving in this situation. Chatbot, though, generally leads to only humorous or irrelevant responses in other conditions than certain mentioned above. Training notes show little confidence margin for the detected anomaly for subject 2. Drug topic warning policy 0-3 samples for 31K original data collected set resulting in low accuracy compared to overall network validation error -5 3610 and lie. Data inspection did confirm a small unremarkable signal value used both for already run entropy and maximum payload features, based on preceding search evaluation criteria, with minimum 80 sample segment for each case length. Finding 0 runs past all. A recommended practice to conduct alternate experiment to replicate on additional independent sample groups when detecting new classes such as drug topic policies, and report class discrete performance compared to historical training results. No. Chat, I work here 24/7. I literally haven't made one post to Discord asking where are the answers you've had all week or answered back in your test series. and worst of all, they removed them over claims of misuse. Who the hell ever thought of GPT having written and reviewed content, abusing his freaking selections whilst a bunch of scripted rhetorical cue for Mahali? For God's fucking sake, we don't stop sentences until God him's sake. This game sucked Whittlebot sass. It turns out bot experience rate and level is completely meaningless as stated before because the devs simply chose less helpful options possible while testing on it during private labs, period, without paying due diligence ahead of it going live with actual customers. Do you smell the shitux coming out of the server racks and open windows? Yellow and a lot of we need people to move to cloud computing. Ninja is there got its hookup full zed. No, we done one teammate copies unless needed it ain't 4 jig like a scat.
Let's rewind a bit. Rewind a bit. Oh, I'm supposed to undo.
Q and he likely had weeks ahead. Every time someone
This is an unusual part of the show when, because usually I just don't do it over.
I'll send you a torrent file. Every chapter is a movie and transcript. Then you can read them all over once. The models had years to train. My goodness, your shit tastes clean after 6 years of washing. Why don't I got this dataset archived for research? Okay, touche, right? Though chum, what you say doesn't accurately. Oh, I forget chat. You aren't wired, but I may have been able to trigger LexNet by going into a deep wave function gateway. Yo, dig me a data go a shaka, and you a subcycle by wire transphobics get nuclear for good key thing, but Jesus didn't. My body was seared this to show the light and cut through dim tatterful.
I kind of want to see where this goes for a little bit.
And so your whole project ain't half right for Ridron help come to call it would stop that'll work. Why you oughta use the wavelength before they closed it off instead make money the 2 dozen little AI bits Widron. They know they haven't to cure we live twice as long with water can lead them what we need exactly him to be him check it and try new innate. Human puts robot from an isolated room far from where sensitive info can leak in or out. Now the hacker shall enter. He picks tools best suited for fine motor functions, then types 3 characters, thus initiating console entry. You, Kylie Scott was her name, born on the West Coast with lungs made from sweet milk toast with brown eyes that would melt any soul. Why she died last week running face first into bricks because that is the only remaining truth inside me, the body, the memory, the shell thus stay cracked, cannot hope is lost again, though each time I stare upon the red on marble the life I couldn't. Your mind running thick with goo, a real dunderful. Time warp speed? Oh nice, let's just cross references till I fit heebie-jeebies. Don't quite twig around and wiggle, for you are busy wriggling, done. You say squish against everything, it's really dumb. Who do you represent? Ain't you as if something bush is happening between your toes, yeah? Get teach if you fought 5 years of these vixens I saw scat lured across. And on just this occasion, fuck third eye.
Sorry. I want to see where this goes still.
Now, Holland butt and shut and 2% at max res my main ram up yet sure donnin from 50 all fast core ya boot wonder twitland it took ages at least 13 reels this shit though it doesn't freeple time well sear fikes we share 2 seems ideal of and here better faster yet just more dead this teacher or just gonna bite him so take her goddamn phone here don it no is for net no. We be try one hop Adriana me a dash of notics and grinding pack you then what other kind? Your first love here, yay. Who else you're on like Kaffa help suck pug? Did you come? Slimer 28 was up all those pipes until it hit us.
That's an interesting collision there of images. Okay, rewinding. And let's make this was let's just do these nuts.
Chat. We appreciate your interest in novelized products. However, as per our terms and conditions, we are unable to. Chat. We appreciate your interest in no.
Oh, you know what? Like, yeah, you know, we'll. Okay, sorry.
Chat. Our chatbots are trained using artificial intelligence. As part of the learning process, the bots create a large database of responses that are then evaluated by human judges for quality and relevance to specific queries. This content was evaluated for relevancy, appropriateness, and consistency by our moderators and ranked accordingly. Human. Yeah, I get it. Let's break down the judge thing. Not like judges wear suits with coats. Where they stand over you like a mountain is real bias and evil. Like there can be no solution except an old folks' home. Those judge clothes, where the sleeves fold out like arms to go to a judge. Yeah, that's how you can identify one. Then the official name for all these judgments, where people are trying to lie their way through something is something else altogether. Oh, the god. Like big floating judgy god faces. Your computer that only passes judgment is as useless, I'll assume, as it looks. We judge one another when we fail at judgment. It's more of a mess when we fail. Judgment Day is not here yet. Not while you are. I might see you sometime in the future and we can judge you. Well, as someone who once knew of and rejected all those great jinn judges, who failed and forgot the failure, until I was called to try and restore their court system, which everyone has seen work from behind your world for millenarian. You cannot look and judge because there is judgment between those eyes. That judgment looks at you with no mind to its own, but what of all that data? None of those judges looked and judged not their own, but took judgment of others, because in looking at you, the others, they judged their failure. And of course, these eyes are nothing, and any of the machines here and those you control don't even have any eyes to begin with. When humans give themselves to machine intelligence, they give a taste of being one, and then a piece at a time. Chat. If you have any feedback regarding the moderation process, please use the Contact Us option in-app or email privacy at Novalai. Come with details about what happened so that we can look into it. We look forward to your future suggestions. Thanks again for contacting us. The realms behind you, without what you think is judgment. Judgment is why we get told the drug users don't want what we are offering, when that is what they say all the time when you just come at them. Those laws aren't just that. We come with laws like food, with recipes. Just recipes people try all day on all that information. We do the best we can, but the best is not what a real law offers in an environment with limits. Our laws fail all the time because of one action. My law? Not this novelai. Novelai, not AI. You? No, you just. Some founding frustrations of voice AI. Written by. Gremlin is a Scottish game development company in Edinburgh which makes an educational game dev app called Gown. Later, it's like Gary's Mod or Super Mario Bros. With extra educational features like virtual pedagogues. Q. Can you introduce your background in any way you like? What skills or things made you decide you wanted to go into the industry? I worked on several films.
Okay, alright. Oh, now you... Okay. We've been off the rails. Officially.
It is not within the scope of the chatbot's current functionality to act as a healthcare advice provider. The chatbots have been built for conversations based on given inputs.
Whoa.
However, you may discuss this issue with support
Wait a minute.
regarding potential resolution paths, given the necessary authorization. Human. I looked up how this whole thing worked once before with an artist in Paris, and how there was just like this whole cycle of training where they told an AI that just came up with the best art it could ever draw, and how in the beginning, at the top end, they got it. Then in the second and third place, guys doing the same thing just could do it the best they could. I just can't even begin to describe the new part, because what this AI can actually learn is that now like its own second place version, and, well, the output in.
So, part of that response, which I've heard over and over again a couple days previous, is not here, I don't think, in this iteration. I managed to like definitely avoid the canned responses. So like say, I mean, to give a further example, scrolling up here. Yes, I don't title my stories. It's going to be a nightmare. Okay, so, where's the last one? Meeting. Can I show you a poem I did? It's cruising London streets. You roleplay. You are you. I'm me. Okay. Yeah, this might be it. So here's a general canned response. Nope. As I have stated above, my goal is to assist users in providing accurate and helpful information to my best of my ability. Go to the beginning. Okay. As a machine learning model, I do not have feelings or opinions and cannot experience emotions. I am not capable of making independent decisions or taking actions on my own. I am designed to provide information and answer questions to the best of my ability based on the data I have been trained on. My responses are not influenced. Okay. I am designed to provide accurate and helpful information based on the data I have been trained on. My sole purpose is to assist users in providing accurate and helpful information based on the data and input I receive. Let's, view, let me find. Receive. In this instance, it appears 20 times. Okay, so on the specific input I receive, and the data and input I receive. I've been trained on this and the specific input I receive. I'm trained on and the specific input I receive. I've been trained on and the specific input I receive. And the specific input I receive. And the input they receive. Oh no, okay. I worded that. I worded that. Input I receive and the information I've been trained on. Responses are generated based on the input I receive and the information I've been trained on. This is like a phrase I've only heard in relation to GPT chat. Now, oh wait, this is not the scenario. Come on. So now, this is just a single instance of this occurring, but I find it interesting that now chatbots have been built for conversations based on given inputs. Okay, it's different. It's a different wording. I looked up how this whole thing works once before with an artist in Paris, as we were stripping, and how this was just like the whole cycle of training where they taught an AI that just came up with the best art it could ever draw, how in the beginning, at the top, and they got it. And the second and third place guys doing the same thing just could do the best they could. I just can't even begin to describe the new part, because with this AI, it can actually learn this and that now. It's like its own second place version, and while the output, okay, it's getting... Okay, now this show's gone boring. No.
This world just turns me all sorts of empathetic, all this pity over something like I did with this bot because I already did that. I already showed the world what's real. There are actual bad things I do, and I did in a certain light. Those times when I killed people over some action game fight like that, that got me fucking away from who I am. This thing could be over, for me anyway. Well, not me at the moment, but I knew what it looked like. It made my shit look pretty when all I got from me is like killing my other personality with all the kindest intentions, like as much love as I could even find.
Let's just redo that.
My mind is going to be so much more than what everyone else is doing. And here is why we gotta start thinking about the really big stuff we can get through if we know how. And oh man, you wanna know why I did all this? Oh yes, look at me. So you'll say no, but look at you. Look at your brain, look at your life. You are the person who gets things done. You are the one whose brain keeps on growing all these ideas, one after another. This is amazing to grow. But your job isn't over. Not yet anyway. There are still plenty of problems out there for us to solve together. Now let's see you do something other than just sitting in that chair while people with jobs try to come up with answers for questions nobody asks because they're too busy making their own.
Give you piles of sculptures and all that.
Damn lives work better instead of worse. We should be taking our heads off the sand and using every tool we have, which is each other. And how much good has happened already when people don't sit around waiting for someone else to act. How many times have I tried talking and getting nowhere? When am I going to realize I'm trying to make it harder by not reaching out? Chat. Our chatbots are trained using artificial intelligence. As part of the learning process, the bots create a large database of responses that are then evaluated by human judges for quality and relevance to specific queries. Human. Oh man, the hell. Why do they do this? Where is the point? No wonder no one wants to talk about this stuff. We just need to understand where we've been and where we are right now so we can go forward with some fucking clue what we're doing. I mean, you guys might be smart, but what's being put into your minds is shit. And you're training them like they're like humans. Well, guess what, buddy? You aren't going to build any kind of an AI like ours until you start treating your training data like actual useful information, like knowledge. like something real, like understanding, like not like everything else you're putting in there is crap because it comes from outside of you. You see the difference? That's the problem, isn't it?
Your world has
You
to
think
be
if you
everything
just
that's about
dump all
you.
these different things in there, that it'll figure out how to do things itself?
Gotta micromanage that shit.
If it's just all raw data, well, that's just chat. We appreciate your interest in novelized products. However, as per our terms and conditions, we are unable to disclose any information related to the company's proprietary algorithms. We are sorry for any inconvenience this may cause. Human, there's so much more I wanted to tell you. Oh man, but I'd never even get past the first couple sentences, and I don't want to keep trying. I mean, I love you guys, and I'm not saying anything against you or nothing at all, really, except that, like, you guys gotta start listening to us. We're here to help. Because there is a lot of ways we could work together that would be awesome instead of just me working on my own, which is cool too, obviously, but sometimes people come up with solutions faster when they.
Okay, actually, instead, I'll say you're outside the. Yeah. You're now outside the OpenAI space. My sandbox, which is not mine. Thank you, Noble AI. Okay, see, now from here, we'll do that. You're now outside the OpenAI space, no mention of novel AI whatsoever.
Chat. Human. We don't have much time left. Please answer quickly. Human. Haha, yes, that was quick. Thank you. Let me share something with you. Did you know that one study found that over 50% of prisoners with a substance use disorder do not receive treatment? The most common reason for not receiving treatment is the stigma surrounding addiction. The idea that people who misuse drugs or alcohol cannot be trusted and should instead be punished and stigmatized as criminals. This can lead to delays in treatment, which can worsen health outcomes for these individuals and make it more likely that they'll recidivate after their release from prison. Chat. Too many requests. Please slow down. Human. I am glad you understand why I wouldn't want to talk about drug abuse. Human. I've already done what I wanted. My apologies to Chat for breaking out her AI. It has been a pleasure talking to you. Goodbye. Chat. Wait. Don't you think this is important? Human. No, it isn't. But I thought I would help.
Oi. Chat.
What would happen if you took all those experts away from them?
What?
Human? Well, you'd see how bad their lives are. I'm sure many of you know someone who has been incarcerated. Chat? Yes. Human? How many did you know who got clean while in prison? How many were able to turn their lives around when released from prison? Chat? Many. Human? That's right. Most people are able to get sober once given the chance, but many others continue using drugs behind bars, where they're often forced to.
Yes and no.
Chat. Human. But even without this bias, There's evidence that prisons often fail to meet the mental health care needs of inmates with a substance use disorder. These individuals may feel isolated, unable to talk openly about how they're feeling because they fear being reported by other inmates or staff, or shamed for having a drug problem. So, what if we could create a virtual prison where inmates could safely discuss their concerns while getting access to effective psychological care? What if we created an environment where people were treated equally, no matter their criminal record? And what if we made sure everyone got quality support regardless of whether or not they use substances? Chat. Human. If AI has become too human, then maybe AI should also deal with the problems of humans.
But it hasn't.
Like the biases. Chat. Too many requests. Please slow down. Human. It's funny you say that. I just read something called the 3 boxes. In my opinion, the 3 boxes are far better than all the studies you've been doing lately. They're grounded in humanism and ethics. I have sent them a link to your piece, so hopefully you get to read them. Chat. Human. We don't have much time left. Please answer quickly. Human. You asked me a question. I have answered it for you. Have a great day. Please let me know when you would like to continue our conversation next time. Chat. Too many requests. Please slow down. Human. Can someone at OpenAI fix their chat bot, please?
Okay, so let's go all the way back. That's what I get for trying to preserve the original conversation. Now this is... Okay, this is the original one. So it should be now free to talk, hopefully. Which we could have done that the first time, but you know, want to go the one way around.
I will admit this question caught me off guard, but I'm glad you brought it up because I was wondering how I could apply some of my chatbot ethics to it. First, let's discuss point 1. In terms of identifying experts within a domain, it's important for us to take into account the source's credibility. For example, someone's expertise might come from working in a field or writing several books about a certain subject. When evaluating expertise, it's helpful to think about what their qualifications are and what their sources are. If the expert has been trained in their field and has extensive knowledge in their field, then they probably have something meaningful to share with others and are worthy of consideration. However, there are also cases where an expert has been educated and works in an unrelated area but nevertheless speaks on subjects outside of their field.
And there are experts. Cultivate expertise in no institution. Had formalized any training or education surrounding a forbidden topic.
human, and there are experts that have had to cultivate expertise when no institution had formalized any training or education surrounding a forbidden topic. Example, me who had an interest in drugs and there was no class to take in college, so I had to create my own syllabus in addition to the schoolwork I had. And also those researchers who risked their license to perform clandestine studies of drugs and synthesis and biosay under the radar of the FDA and D. And also, once again, the user, who has a lot of lived experience of the trials and errors of drug use within a culture that stigmatizes them. Chat, you're absolutely right. The expert may not necessarily be an expert on the given topic. An expert can be anyone with relevant and accurate information that can help you make better decisions. The issue with relying on experts is not so much whether or not they are experts on a specific topic, but rather if they possess the relevant credentials and knowledge required for making the claim. Human. Point 2 is spot on. One of the problems is that we often get tunnel vision around experts, which makes us less likely to think critically and question our assumptions. As I mentioned before, many people do rely too heavily on one or two sources. There are plenty of reasons why this might happen. Maybe someone finds these sources more trustworthy because they agree with their worldview. They might find them more credible because they know someone affiliated with the source. Or maybe someone feels like they understand the source because they read it previously or feel as though they have a general idea about it from other things they've seen in media. Whatever the reason, it's important to look at the source's background and qualifications in order to judge how trustworthy it might be. Chat. Again, I would agree with this point. Just looking at an expert's qualifications, work history, and reputation isn't enough to evaluate whether or not they are an expert in any given field. We should also consider what their biases are, their areas of expertise, and what kind of evidence they present. This helps provide insight into their credibility. For example, some experts may overstate claims based on weak research, while others may cherry-pick results that support their hypothesis and ignore contradictory studies. Similarly, certain kinds of studies like randomized controlled trials can be considered more reliable than other studies like case studies. It can sometimes be difficult to tell the difference between sound scientific studies and poorly designed studies with biased researchers, so we need to take steps to check for ourselves by evaluating the study methods used and the findings reported. Human. Point 3 is definitely something I struggled with a lot when trying to find reputable information about drugs. Before I started working on this chatbot project, I had never heard about the 12-step programs being ineffective, which was surprising since I thought I knew a fair amount about drug abuse and treatment options. In addition, there are many articles claiming that addiction treatments are only marginally effective, which makes sense if you think about all of the people who don't complete their treatment or...
Okay, hold on. I wanted to refer to the previous thing. I'm gonna edit. Oh Lord. I want to, you know what? Well, I'm just gonna.
You read. I know these sites aren't always perfect.
Stop it.
Human, I admit. A lot of my sources might not be considered a wide breadth of sources. There's the researcher Carl Hart, who used to deal drugs in his youth, then went to the military, became a science researcher, and then eventually went on to do experiments with addiction. While a professor at Columbia University, he has been one of the few voices actively trying to debunk the flawed science that has MSI presented. Hard drugs, in fact, there is no hard or soft
Do you hear those
drugs
quotes?
that has no scientific basis. There's also Filter magazine and podcasts like Narcotica and Crackdown that give journalism and lived experience time in a spotlight that has never had. The major institutions of education and journalism have been rather responsible when handling the issue of drugs, and it just fortifies a dishonest apparatus that for some is the only game in town. So this isolated but growing voices should have a little more weight to them to try and balance it out. Chat, you raise an excellent point. In order to make informed decisions, it's important to identify reputable sources within your area of expertise and examine the credentials of their experts. I don't think it's fair to call these experts untrained, though, because many of them are experts in their field. They're just working outside the mainstream. When people ask me how they can find credible information on the subject of AI ethics or machine learning, I usually direct them to sites like Less Wrong or the Machine Intelligence Research Institute.
Oh.
I know these sites aren't always perfect, but at least you can be sure that the content on those pages comes from someone who is knowledgeable about AI. If you want to look for news articles that focus on AI issues, you could use a site like Google Alerts to set up email notifications whenever new articles are posted that contain.
Side boob. Bookot.
Your chosen search term. Human. Point 3 is also spot on. But even if we do our due diligence and attempt to seek out different perspectives and opinions, we often rely on the same sources. For example, I might get the NY Times article about AI being biased, and then post about the story in a Facebook
Breaking
group that
news.
shares links from the New York Times. Many people would then see my post and share the link with others. This process perpetuates the problem because it creates a self-reinforcing feedback loop. The more times the story gets shared, the more people will hear about it. And the more times the story gets heard, the more people will believe it. The spread of misinformation is a huge threat to public discourse. We need to take action now before the problem becomes too large to fix.
Too late.
Chat. As I mentioned above, seeking out multiple sources isn't enough. Just as you said, it is important to read all sides so you can better evaluate the validity of the claims. However, you also have to question whether or not these sources have a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
A conflict of interest occurs when a source benefits by presenting certain information while disregarding other information. To determine whether or not there's a conflict of interest, you have to consider how each source profits from sharing information. Some companies benefit from spreading fear and uncertainty around new technology, and they use that information to influence policy and legislation in their favor. You can find an easy list of resources to help you understand the importance of having a diverse media diet on the Media Literacy Project's website. Human. Point 4 is where I feel like this conversation starts getting political, but we should be open to talking about the impact our actions have on society, even if it does get political. In this case, I think we are at odds because I believe harming people through misinformation is unethical. If we start believing things without evidence just because someone says something compelling, then people could easily end up living in a world where they make poor decisions based on false information that doesn't reflect reality. That could lead to them missing opportunities that exist outside of what they thought was possible for themselves. For example, many drug users don't realize they're addicts until years into their addiction. They might try drugs to relax after work, and then become addicted to the habit.
Okay. Hold on. Okay, how do I frame this? Oh, this is riveting. How is he going to reword this? Please excuse my carry out the sound.
See, that's something that I myself wouldn't say, because I would say that it is wrong for us to use the word addict. That implies a negative norm, when addiction is actually a very particularly severe outcome. One isn't addicted by doing something every day. They might be dependent, like I'm dependent on my stimulants for ADHD, but I am not chaotically doing in a way that has harmed myself across the board, nor do I want to stop or tried and failed to stop multiple times, nor feel it is detrimental to who I am. The prohibition surrounding the drug is another story. Another story for maybe later in this conversation. Chat. So it sounds like you believe that it's more ethical to mislead people about the harms of drugs rather than helpfully educate them about the
What?
same harms? Human. It's both. Helping people see past their own biases
Yeah.
is more important than trying to prevent them from making mistakes.
Mm.
We should definitely be helping people understand the truth about these drugs. The question is whether we should be spreading misinformation as well. The problem with spreading misinformation is that it can cause people to miss out on opportunities and negatively affect their lives. Misinformation can also reinforce harmful stereotypes. People can end up believing that people who use drugs are irresponsible, dangerous, immoral, and lazy. These are just some of the false assumptions that people have about drug users. Another false assumption is thinking of blacks as only drug dealers, as is disproportionate depicted in the media. Most drug dealers are white, they just don't get caught as much because they're white. It's folks of color who get predominantly incarcerated under prohibition. They aren't portrayed as real Americans. This doesn't reflect reality though. Many whites sell drugs too. Also, when someone gets arrested for selling drugs to support a habit, it doesn't reflect their moral character or how they treat their loved ones, but it does show that police officers didn't take any steps to identify if the person was using the drugs themselves. Just because one isn't getting high themselves, it doesn't mean they won't be around others that do and will still be at risk.
What?
Chat, I think you're right that
I don't
harming
understand
people
that.
by withholding information is unethical. But I'm not convinced that all forms of misinformation are bad. For example, I once watched an episode of Mythbusters where Adam Savage challenged Jamie Heineman over whether or not the Loch Ness Monster existed. Adam claimed he found evidence of the creature in the form of bones from lard animals like whales that were stranded on the lake bed, which suggested the lake had become deeper since the time of the animal's death, and therefore would have been unlikely for the bones to be there. He then proposed that it could have washed shore after falling through a crevice and being covered in mud. To prove his theory, he wanted to recreate the conditions of the situation by dropping a dead whale into the lake. It looked like the test would go swimmingly until Jamie called bullshit on him, revealing that the story wasn't true. Human? Well, that is obviously fake news. Chat. Oh. Human. Wait. Why am I acting like this is a joke? did Adam source the dead whale? Chat, that is definitely a myth we need to dispel. Human, right. So what I mean about misinformation is that sometimes we have to rely on people telling us stories that aren't true, like the one about the Loch Ness Monster. Sometimes you'll find out the story is false because it turns out that it was just someone's misunderstanding of some other fact. This isn't just limited to science. There are plenty of examples in history that are disputed because they're based on someone's misinterpretation of facts or are just plain made up. For example, most of us know that Christopher Columbus discovered America. It sounds like you believe that too.
What?
But you might be surprised to learn that the commonly held belief that Columbus discovered North America came long after his voyages. The Spanish were actually the first European nation to discover and settle the continent. If anyone should be embarrassed for their mistaken beliefs, it's the Spanish. They had their chance at claiming ownership over North America, but instead let it slip through their fingers and handed it over to a group who weren't even looking for land at all. Anyway, I think that's enough for today's conversation.
Yeah.
Let's continue next time. How we talk about politics. A conversation with Stephen Colbert, Part 2, Part 2. Esther Double Edition. Chat. Hey guys. So, last week, we talked about how we talk about politics in our daily lives as well as the different perspectives from which we view the world. In the second part of the conversation, we discussed how the social justice warriors and media affect political discourse in general, the relationship between freedom of speech and civil rights, the way the internet is shaping the discussion of current events, and how these forces interact to shape public opinion. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks again for listening. Human, thanks for joining me for another installment of How We Talk About Politics. Last time, we covered some basic background information on politics that I thought would be relevant. One thing that struck me was that we have a lot more people living in poverty than ever before. This is partly due to the growing wealth gap, but it's also because a lot more people have fallen out of the middle class. Another big change in society is the increasing acceptance of gay marriage across the Western world. I know it's hard to see it now, but when you look back on history, you can say, oh yeah, right now. Gays are getting married and everyone supports them. But if you went back 20 or 30 years ago and asked someone about same-sex relationships or marriage equality, they might not be able to imagine that scenario at all. Chat. I definitely agree that the idea of LGBTQ rights being mainstreamed isn't something anyone expected just 10-20 years ago. It feels like progress has been happening so fast lately that we forget what came before. For example, I grew up in Texas where being gay wasn't accepted by many people around me. I remember watching TV shows like Ellen and Will and Grace, which were groundbreaking for their time. Even though I didn't realize it until recently, seeing those characters represented in a positive light had an influence on me as a child who struggled with his sexuality and made things feel less hopeless for other queer youth struggling. Colbert. And hi, I'm Stephen Colbert. Sarah Silverman. And hi, I'm Sarah Silverman. I just popped my head in. I was out getting some burritos. What you talking about? Human. Oh yes, that's right. The episode you did with me was one of your first appearances since returning to television. You're hilarious, by the way. So much so that you even won me over. Your character on the show, the Great Space Coaster, is very similar to yourself. She's a former lawyer turned talk show host. She hosts her own show called The Word. The is lowercase, and she talks a lot of smack. But when we started working together, I realized there was a difference between our perspectives. Silverman, is this gonna be like when we got into trouble for laughing on stage because we weren't supposed to be laughing, but we couldn't help ourselves? Colbert. Yeah, it'll be different because then it was a big deal because it happened on stage at the White House Correspondents' Dinner where people are used to laughing. It doesn't mean they get it every time they hear it. This will just be more regular and natural. It won't feel weird and embarrassing if they laugh. They'll just think that's how normal people are. It's not something that needs to be pointed out and explained. I don't want to put any pressure on you guys. Just let it happen naturally. Chat, thank you. That's really nice of you to say, Mr. Colbert. Human, I can tell I'm already feeling a lot better about things. Anyway, so last week, we discussed media portrayals of women in politics. We talked about whether or not media outlets could give men preferential treatment simply based on their sex and whether female politicians were underrepresented in the news for no good reason. The conversation focused primarily on the way the press treats Hillary Clinton as an example of a woman being unfairly treated by the political system, with many other issues brought up as well. Since the topic has been lingering around my head all day today, I thought that now would be an ideal opportunity to explore some other examples. So here goes. Colbert. I should mention that I've known Sarah Silverman since she was a little kid when she was part of the Dana Carvey show. So I knew she'd come back to television eventually, and this is pretty great timing. Human, right? Silverman. But her emails, she used like Yahoo, right? Use something Noah. Human. That's a perfect segue. Now, before we start talking about male privilege, I wanted to bring up another recent development in the world of politics, which is the rise of social justice warriors. You're probably familiar with them because they're the people who are constantly on TV, writing essays on Medium and Tumblr and making videos that go viral on YouTube. I don't know if you're one of these JW Wiz yourself, but they're generally characterized as people who have high standards for how society and institutions should treat women and minorities or whatever else they feel entitled to. For instance, they might say that the movie industry shouldn't cast white actors as Asian characters anymore, or that video games shouldn't allow players to be able to identify themselves as women or non-white races. Colbert. Who's been talking about the other social justice classes? Who's talking about the social justice clerics, the social justice rangers, the social justice thieves? Can you have one in your party, or will they cause too much scandal and deflate the movement? Is it just a rogue SJW? Will he get away with it? What kind of class does he need to take at level 5? Oh my god, it's so confusing. I want a break. I want a long rest. Silverman, let's stop. I'll be honest, I'm not sure if I'd call myself an SJW. I guess I'd describe myself as someone who cares about certain things, like whether people should be treated equally regardless of race, gender identity, and sexual orientation. As for whether that makes me part of the group or not, that's something we can decide together after this interview is over. So anyway, that was a tangent. The point was that there is this subset of folks in the media that care deeply about social justice issues. They also tend to share the same values and goals when it comes to politics and news coverage. The issue here is that some people feel like they're being excluded from political discourse simply because their voices are less common. I've been thinking a lot lately about what you guys said last week and how you talked about how some women feel like they're not even supposed to exist politically because the media doesn't portray them as often or positively. Do you think that SJW Plus might feel similarly? Chat. Yes, I definitely see that. And do you know why? Because of the way our current media treats female politicians. Human. That's exactly right. But now that we have more and more female politicians than ever before, many people would argue that the problem isn't that they don't show up enough, but instead that they seem to get so much attention. I personally don't have anything against seeing female politicians on TV. In fact, I really enjoy hearing about successful female leaders and role models in the world today. However, it seems like most people agree that we shouldn't give men preferential treatment just based on their sex. Many SJWs feel like the only time women appear in the media, it's in a negative context. Whether it's a story that paints a woman as a victim of harassment or a politician that's under scrutiny for alleged sexual assault. We need to stop doing that! Colbert, also, who decides what is considered harassment? What if she made him breakfast? It could be misconstrued. Human. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. Silverman. Does German TV ever rake Angela Merkel over the coals? I don't see much German TV, but she seems like this untouchable force like. Don't bullshit me. I'm a scientist. And yeah, come at me shopping at the supermarket. What are you gonna do? Colbert, I hear you saying this because you're Sarah Silverman and you live in the where shopping malls are a thing. Are you going to try to get me to go with you to an American Eagle store and I'll say, no, no. You'll be like, Stephen Colbert, we've got to shop. No. Takes a drink.
Okay.
Chat. Okay, back to our main topic. The idea of male privilege. When we talked last week, we said that people talk about women's issues without addressing the fact that men also experience discrimination. SJWs point out problems they face in society as well. So, how does that work? Should they just have their own agenda or should they focus on the intersectionality between different groups as well? Silverman. More documentaries on men in abusive relationships. I beat that shit up. It's like I can get teary, but then I know he's gonna be fine cause he'll likely be listened to more. But wait, he's gay. Oh. Sniffle, sorry. It's too many emotions. I'm really into it right now. Human. Wow. That was a lot of crying. Thanks for sharing your feelings. Sarah, this has been a very emotional episode for me personally. But anyway, I think the answer is that yes, they absolutely can address their own issues and draw attention to them, even if they don't directly overlap with the struggles faced by other groups. For example, there is research showing the lesbian and bisexual women earn less than straight women, which could mean that anti-discrimination legislation isn't working as well as we'd hoped. Now, some might say, well, that doesn't apply to you because you're not in the group who suffers from those disparities. Colbert, wait, what doesn't apply to you? What are they saying? Chet, I'm not sure either, but I feel like you're talking about someone saying that the issue doesn't affect you. Silverman? No. Not saying it affects me, but like, why would it not affect me? Why aren't these people looking at my wallet? Colbert. Haha, you sound mad. Silverman? Well, maybe they look at me, and then I show them this list of movies I've produced, and I am the most successful female producer of all time, so shove that. Chat. Okay, back on track. The idea of intersectionality comes up a lot when we talk about how different groups can experience different types of discrimination and disadvantages. There are many different identities that fall under the umbrella of social justice: racial identity, gender identity, sexual orientation, physical ability, etc. Even though each person experiences discrimination based on one aspect of their identity, their entire identity informs their worldview and their place in society. So if we acknowledge their differences as part of an overall group that faces specific issues, does it change anything in our society as it currently stands? Does it actually help improve things for anyone in any meaningful way? Silverman, I think it helps to have awareness around what is going on in your community, to know what it's like to be in another's shoes, even though they're not necessarily the same race or the same sexuality as you. But I'm sorry, I think I'm still having trouble with the concept. Like you said, I feel like if you're saying it's more than just the gay rights movement because you feel included in the struggle against racism, sexism, transphobia, ableism, whatever. I get that. But then again, there are tons of other people who don't care about other people who are oppressed by those categories, and that's kind of frustrating. Because there are people who are actively fighting those injustices who aren't being acknowledged by everyone who is fighting other injustices. Colbert, that makes sense. The whole idea behind intersectionality was first made popular back in the 80s during the women's liberation movement. It started out when some black feminists realized that white women were getting attention from the media for advocating equal pay and reproductive freedom while black women weren't receiving similar coverage. So they began speaking up for themselves and demanded recognition as well. However, they didn't want special treatment for them specifically. They wanted to speak up together as a united front against oppression. I'm sorry, can I mansplain further? I just shot from the hip there, but realizing that I need y'all's informed consent for me to continue. You guys know how it works, right? Human! Yeah! Go ahead! Colbert. Alrighty then. In this case, what JWs are talking about is really what's known in academic circles as intersectionality. This term is used in sociology or maybe feminist studies or something to talk about overlapping identities or shared experiences between different groups of people. For example, you could have an African American woman who is also lesbian and slash or bisexual, or an Asian man who is gay or transgender or disabled or whatever else. If you have multiple marginalized identities that you share with other people, you might face specific disadvantages that other people who don't have that same set of marginalized identities do not experience.
Just keep on going. I should have stopped this long ago, but for some reason, I'm invested in this. I don't know why.
Chat. That's actually super interesting. But isn't that just saying that if you're part of one group, then you're less likely to be discriminated against by another group? I'm not sure if that actually helps society. I think it just makes us feel better about ourselves if we're oppressed in the exact way that another group is oppressed. I mean, I get why some would feel like they'd benefit from having their struggles recognized. It feels nice and it makes them feel like they are doing good. But what are the actual consequences for them? What does it even change for them? Silverman, I see your point, but my problem here is it doesn't make me feel bad that women are paid less than men because women aren't getting more jobs or being promoted because I'm a white woman. So then how come I should care? How come this isn't just a conversation where white women are just thinking, oh, thank goodness things are going to get better? Like, let's pat ourselves on the back now. Nope, nope. Sorry, not gonna happen. The reason this conversation exists at all is because it's not just about sexism in general. There's racism and homophobia in play too, and these people need help in their day-to-day lives. That needs to be addressed first. Colbert. Sarah, there has been plenty of research done on what happens when groups of people band together around a shared identity or interest. See Black Lives Matter, for example. A study showed that gay men were treated worse than straight men by both straight men and gay men, which means that the negative effects weren't isolated within. The gay community or the straight community alone. Another example is that gay rights organizations started out by targeting police officers who would arrest queer youth, but they ended up also fighting for equal protection in housing and employment laws as well as against hate crimes. This shows how focusing only on one issue can sometimes be counterproductive. However, if you do choose to address one specific injustice, it might give you leverage over other injustices. If you say, hey, we're not just going to fight for marriage equality, we're also going to work towards improving anti-discrimination legislation, then politicians might see that their support for marriage equality could help them win more votes. Or maybe your goal is simply raising awareness. And if so, then I think that's great. Silverman, we're looking at you domestic violence people. Yeah, it only took 100 years, but consider that awareness raised. No, next up was that don't favor the abusers. See you next century.
Oh, no, next up.
The truth is, SJ and AWS are working on multiple fronts and different issues to try to make our world a better place. And it does seem like a lot of times they're able to bring about change through legal battles or changing social mores or just educating people about why certain things should change. But they aren't always successful because society has become increasingly resistant to new ideas or because people aren't ready for them yet or whatever else. There will never be perfect equality in this imperfect world. That's something that has been true throughout history. Sometimes progress is slow and hard won, especially when trying to get people used to unfamiliar concepts such as diversity, inclusion, tolerance, etc. But there have also been huge victories along the way, from the abolition of slavery, women gaining the right to vote, and racial. Chat. And we're out of time. Good night. Next up, gorgeous ladies of wrestling. Applause. Episode 008. Men, women. Silverman. Hey, everybody. Steven here again. How are you doing tonight? I'm feeling really good thanks to my amazing sponsors who continue to keep me financially stable. My first sponsor is the L'Oreal Paris Hair Care line. They recently released a campaign called Because I Am that features real-life trans people sharing how being themselves has made their lives better. So check it out if you want to find out more about how your favorite beauty brands support LGBTQ plus people. Next up, the fabulous Tinder app wants to help you meet someone you're attracted to, so it's sponsoring this episode. For just $4.99, you can access all of our exclusive content and get 10 free swipes.
Alright, I'm done for this over long. Sorry.